We start with our western hero Telldane, arriving in a rough town called Six Shooter Siding. He whistles at a good-looking girl with curves in all the right places, and twice uses a swear word to describe her. We're only on page 3, and I'm already worried about the direction the romance novel is taking.
Argofont Book Review, Argofont Book Review.
There is a lot of swearing in this book, including the N-word. Mostly the characters say the harsher versions of dang and heck. The locals accidentally confuse Telldane with his outlaw brother. As a result, someone tries to hire him to kill a train robber named Jupe Dolton. Telldane is so offended at the mistake, he curses loudly and runs away on his horse until he feels better. By total coincidence, he ends up at Dolton Ranch. The beautiful woman from earlier is Dulcie Dolton, Jupe's sister. She tries to scare Telldane off the ranch with a shotgun, but it's too much for her to handle, so she swoons and he has to carry her inside. The Doltons also confuse Telldane for an outlaw, but he has no problems with it, even though last chapter he just threw a big temper tantrum. I'm pretty sure Telldane only listens to them because Dulcie is super gorgeous. Jupe explains he's innocent. He's being framed by Jack Ketchum's gang, which has been after them for a while. A friend named Jackman warns them Jupe is being framed for burning down a building and killing Ketchum's cook. That sounds pretty bad to me, but it gets ignored for the rest of the book. Telldane goes into town and posts a notice saying he's in charge of the Dolton Ranch now. He has a confrontation with Sheriff Strout, and on the way out of town, he sees a 12-to-1 gunfight. Telldane hates those unfair odds, so he jumps into the fight and scares off the shooters. The man he saved is Kin Savvy. Kin is a racist Mexican stereotype who talks with a heavy accent. Kin used to work for Ketchum, and there's a good deal of worry that Kin is still working for the bad guy. Sheriff Strout comes by that night to arrest Jupe for murder. Not the murder of the cook, I told you, everyone ignores that. It's the murder of a woman named Sprawley Clark, who was stabbed just now. Telldane pulls his gun on the sheriff and demands to see the crime scene. Telldane figures the evidence was planted because there's too much of it. No real murderer would be foolish enough to leave 3 pieces of conclusive evidence behind. Normally that would be a good argument, but in this particular case, Jupe is being framed because he's a wild hothead who doesn't follow directions. The argument that he's too smart and controlled to leave behind evidence doesn't work. Strout orders his men to open fire on Telldane. Telldane escapes by throwing a chair out the window. Everybody runs after the chair, and he goes out the front door. He returns to the ranch where Dulcie cries and begs him not to leave her, ever. She's acting like they've had more than 2 conversations together. Telldale, Kinsavi, and the Doltons run away on horses, hoping to flee the county before the sheriff's bloodhounds track them. The sheriff and Ketchum catch them near a gulf, and there's a big shootout. Jupe is shot, but he survives. Our heroes crawl away to safety. Luckily, the sheriff and Ketchum get into a fight over something stupid, and both groups decide to leave. You'd think the sheriff would stick around and try to finish off the murdering outlaws, but he doesn't. He gets upset and leaves. They fix Jupe's wound. It's revealed Kinsavi is a double agent. He gave their location away to the sheriff in exchange for help in finding some lost horses. Kinsavi must really want those horses, considering his plan to get them involves almost dying in a shootout. Telldane realizes Dulcie is perfection to him, all a woman can be, almost like he's known her for more than a day. The sheriff captures Dulcie and uses her as bait to lure Jupe out of hiding. The plan works perfectly, but Telldane is more or less a superhero. He single-handedly breaks into town and rescues Jupe from the 3 most powerful men in the state, including the next governor and a bartender. Super powerful bartender. Kinsavi reveals that Ketchum is going to rob a train in a few days. This is information that would have been useful to know a long time ago. They decide they're going to catch Ketchum red-handed. Dulcie doesn't want Telldane to go, but she knows he has to do his manly duty. She wishes she were a man so she wouldn't be left behind. Telldane kisses her passionately, and she leaves for the rest of the book. The plan to capture Ketchum is foiled when Ketchum robs the train a day early. Kinsavi starts swearing, and he reveals he's not really a racist stereotype. He was just pretending in order to fool people into thinking he's harmless. It didn't work since nobody trusted him, but no matter. Kin is actually a Mexican agent on a secret mission for the U.S. Marshal. Ketchum robs the train again. That is, he robs the same train twice in the exact same location both times. It's a weird decision, but allows our heroes to capture him. Sadly, Jupe dies in the shootout. Telldane realizes the true culprit is Jackman. He's been working behind the scenes to get control of Dolton's ranch. They rush back to town where Jackman explains his plot in some detail. He wants the ranch because it has gold on it. Jackman says no one will suspect him because he's been engaged to Dulcie for 2 years. That strikes me as a pretty big detail to leave out until the end of the book. Dulcie was engaged to the culprit the whole time? So what was up with her kissing Telldane and all the flirting? Why did Jackman wait 1.5 years into the engagement before making his move against the Doltons? Weird. Telldane shoots Jackman. The end. Post-book follow-up. You probably noticed this isn't much of a romance novel. Dulcie's barely in the story, and her role is limited to being the damsel in distress who swoons over Telldane because he's so manly. As it turns out, the book was originally written in 1942. Harlequin republished it as a romance novel 8 years later. So that's why the book isn't much of a romance novel. It's a Western novel, which was later rebranded as a romance. This book is a little hard to understand, as the characters use a lot of old-fashioned Western slang. It's also hard to follow because the author randomly alternates between using first names and last names. It's not consistent, and the worst offender is Jackman and Jackman. You should never refer to 2 different characters by the same name, especially when one of them is the surprise culprit. There are a few points in the book where it felt like the author took an extended break before coming back to writing. That would explain why the character names change, the scene suddenly shifts, and everyone forgets about murder number 1 to focus on murder number 2. Also, Ketchum robbing the same train twice was just weird. I feel like more thorough editing would have fixed these problems. Overall, I didn't like the book. It might have worked as a mystery, with the surprise culprit, the brief murder investigation, and both revelations like Kinsavi's been secretly working for someone else the whole time. But it's not a mystery, it's a Western. And the focus is usually on how tough and manly Telldane is. That didn't interest me. I give Harlequin romance number 29, Gunfighter breed, a 1 out of 10.